The Kipchaks roamed along the Arpachay River and in the area of Choldir Lake. The ancestors of the Kazakhs bred 4 main types of livestock. Where does this tradition come from in the city of Kars? Who was the patron saint of the city of Ani? The Trails of Nomads scientific expedition members continue their work in Turkey. Having visited Shaitan City, the scientists went to the ancient city of Kars, located in eastern Anatolia in northeastern Turkey. The history of the city dates back to ancient times. The city enjoys advantageous geographical location. The Great Silk Road passed through Kars. Today, the city occupies an important place in the tourism sector of Turkey and brings significant investments to the country's budget. There are a lot of ancient monuments that date back to the 9th, 8th millennium BC. Historical and archaeological sites amid amazingly beautiful nature and unique local folklore add even more value to the region and attract tourists. At one time, the city of Kars was the capital of eastern Turkey, an important region of the Byzantine Empire. It was located on the banks of the Choldir River. Trails of Nomads scientific expedition team visited the City Museum of History to learn the past of this amazing and picturesque land deeper. The chronicles of the city of Kars and Ardahan of the Seljuk period, the formation of the state of Akoyli, Karakoyli, Georgia are kept here. There are tombstones that look like books containing information about the period of development of Armenia and the Ottoman Empire. The museum also contains silver and copper coins, old dishes, large clay vessels. Most importantly, many exhibits point on the fact that this area was inhabited by the Turkic tribes. The tombstones made in the form of animals which were bred by the Kipchaks, including horses and rams, are especially worth noting. The stones date back to the 11th, 12th, 13th centuries. These are monuments dedicated to the patrons of domestic animals, the Turks Zengi Baba, Kambara Ta, Chopana Ta, and Sekseka Ta.
Ал екінші бір таңғалатын нәрсе мына қой тастар. Міне қой тастар.
These are amazing stone sculptures. By the way, one of the largest balbals are located in the Caucasus, Iran, and Persia. Now we are in the east of Turkey, and here we've also met a large balbal. Its form suggests that it is very ancient.
Салынған формасына қарап отырып, мұны білуге болады. Бұл өте ертеде істеген нәрсе.
After Kars, the participants of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads went to the neighboring town of Ani, full of dilapidated ancient structures. They are mainly concentrated near the settlement of Ochakli. This place is on the coast of the Arpachay River, right on the border of Turkey and Armenia. We are now at the place where the city of Ani once was located. We see half-destroyed parts of the settlement. It is about 45 kilometers to the city of Kars from here. To our right is the border. Behind it is Armenia. The city's history began in approximately 350-300 BC. The ancient city of Ani is like a treasure. History was born and developed here, so this place attracts tourists who admire the grandeur of once impregnable fortresses and medieval temples. It is the historical center of unique Seljuk architecture with its famous and inimitable buildings. The city was founded in the 10th century. Later it began to grow and develop intensively. This is largely due to its location on the Great Silk Road. There is information that the Armenian dynasty Bagratuni ruled in the city. Today, this is what the city looks like. Its streets were once filled with people. Many traders from different countries stayed here. Therefore, the infrastructure was very developed. There were especially many temples and fortresses.
12-ші ғасырда осы Ани қаласына
In the 12th century, our ancestors began to settle in the city of Ani. Then it was a very large city, especially in the 13th century, when trade along the Great Silk Road was intensively developed. The economy has risen to a high level. In the 12th, 13th centuries, the population of Ani is said to have reached 200,000 people.
адамдары саны 200 мыңға шейін жеткен дейді.
According to local researchers, later the original name of the city of Ani wasn't used. It became known as the city of 1,001 churches, and it is no coincidence. So even today, more than 40 medieval temples have been found in the ancient city.
Hemen arkamızdaki bina
Behind us is a large cathedral. After the Turks arrived here, it became a mosque.
geldiğinde kiliseyi ne yapıyor? Camiye çeviriyor.
The period of the construction of each of the historical sites in the city is known today. For example, the walls in the northern part began to be erected in 972. After a while, the walls were expanded on the eastern side of the city. There were 3 gates on the north side of the city. In the 12th century, during the Seljuk period, the Ashderk Tower was used as a building for a medical institution. It was one of the first hospitals in Anatolia.
Şimdi Ani harabelerinde yani Ani kentinde neler var? Sur duvarları var.
Now, looking at the ruins of mosques and churches, we can say that the city of Ani was quite large. Appropriate measures are currently being taken to include this region in the UNESCO list of cultural and historical monuments.
Hristiyanlığına ait bir şehir ve tamamıyla ticari bir merkez.
In general, most tourists arriving in Turkey do not bypass this amazing historical region. Despite the fact that the ancient monuments are far from their original appearance, they still retain their uniqueness and attract tourists. After all, distant ancestors once lived and worked here. History was born here.
2 tane deprem olmuş. Burası zaten deprem bölgesi.
2 large earthquakes affected the city. The first happened in the 13th century, the next in the 16th. After these events, the population actively began to leave the area.
İlk çeyreğinde, diğeri de 16. yüzyılın başlarında.
Several strong earthquakes destroyed the city. This is a historical fact. Natural disaster destroyed almost all historical monuments. That is why the work of the study of a medieval settlement gives scientists many difficulties.
Өкінішке орай 13-ші ғасырдың
Unfortunately, at the end of the 13th century and the beginning of the 16th century, due to 2 major earthquakes in the region, the locals were forced to leave this area.
бабаларымызды
Our ancestors, more precisely the Kipchaks, were among them. They were called the Kipchaks Turks. They arrived here from Transcaucasia and Georgia.
біздің бабаларымыз
In the 12th century, due to the invasion of huge hordes of Seljuks into this area, the Georgian King David IV asked for help from the Kipchak Khan Artek. In addition, at that time, Georgian nobles did not always recognize the authority of their ruler. Internal strife led to the gradual disintegration of the state. However, as a result of allied agreements, a large Kipchak detachment arrived in the country. Later, Artek Khan married his daughter, Turandot, to David IV. The Kipchaks sacredly revered the customs and traditions of their ancestors. Matchmakers have always been given special attention, so respected relatives were never left in trouble.
Ve zaman zaman burası
The city was ruled by various dynasties in different centuries. It was part of various empires. It was under the rule of the Turks, Byzantium, Armenia, and Georgia. So after the First World War, Ani remained part of the Turkish Republic. The Kipchaks made a great contribution to the development and prosperity of the city of Ani. They not only built the most beautiful buildings and structures here, but also contributed to raising the level of education and culture of the local population.
Осы қалада отырған уақытында біздің бабаларымыз кітап жазды. Бірақ бізде
Our ancestors wrote books while living here. They wrote in the Kipchak language and used the Armenian alphabet. In the 16th century, after a devastating earthquake, they moved to the Crimea, to Ukraine, Kamensk, Podolsk, and Lvov later. Many stayed there.
Одан кейін Львовқа кетті көбісі. Көбісі сол Каменское, Подольское қалып қойды.
According to the well-known traveler, head of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads, Sapar Iskakov, our ancestors wrote mainly educational books that contributed to the spiritual development of people. Their works strengthened religion and also influenced the fair resolution of various disputes and confrontations. There were rules for the settlement of property, economic, land, domestic relations.
I want
to tell you how it really was. There are 3 or 4 books in Yerevan written by our ancestors. There is a large archive in which a collection of manuscripts is kept. There are 23 more books in the Kiev National Archives. There are also in Lviv and a number of cities in Europe. For example, in the cities of Leipzig, Dresden. Everywhere, our ancestors left such a legacy. Now there is a lot of documentary evidence that our ancestors really made a great contribution to the formation and development of the city of Ani. This tablet contains a list of the rulers of the ancient city. The inscription in Turkic and English says that in 1124-1200, the city was ruled by the Kipchak Turks. Having learned a lot of important information about their ancestors, the members of the expedition followed further along the route. The next stop is the city of Ardakan.
Ал енді бұна картаға қарайтын болсақ, міне, қазір біз Ардахан қаласында тұрмыз.
Now we are in the city of Ardahan. This is the city of Akalteke, the territory of Georgia. But this is already the territory of Turkey. We came from Kars to Choldir, from Choldir to Ardahan. Look at this map. 800 years ago, our ancestors formed a large state throughout this territory. And this map is proof of that. It is written here, this huge state existed for 300 years, from 1267 to 1578.
67-тен 1578 жылға шейін 300 жыл осындай үлкен мемлекет болған.
This map is called Atabek Kipchak Turik Debleteri. That is, in ancient times, the region of Ardahan was inhabited by our ancestors. This is an ancient city which was also on the route of the Great Silk Road. The legacy left by the Kipchaks, who once settled on the coast of the Choldir River, has come down to our days. Our ancestors inhabited this region from the 6th, 7th centuries until the 16th century. These are Kipchaks, Pechenegs, Khazars. After that, there were Kelgan Jalairs. Albanians arrived here even earlier. They all settled here in the mountains. We have already visited some places of settlement, including in the area of Lake Van, Mount Ararat. Snow-capped peaks and bridges of rocky mountains. According to the legends, in ancient times, the progenitor of the sacred Kazakh Kobes Korkit Ata visited this place more than once. He went through these mountain valleys on his camel. This is the Bayburt region belonging to Masat, a mountainous district of Turkey. Truth lies in the depth of the legend, said the ancestors. The members of the scientific expedition decided to follow the traces of Korkit Ata, the famous Kui performer and medicine man who comes from the Oghuz Kipchak tribe. Now we are near a big mountain. This village is called Bayburt. Our great ancestor, Korkit Ata, who is known throughout the Turkic world, rests here. Now we will go to the mausoleum. They say that he is actually buried in Kazakhstan, but there is also an opinion that the outstanding ancestor rests in Turkey. And this should be explored by scientists. Korkut Ata knew how to beautifully present Turkic traditions, customs, way of life, beliefs, their difference from other peoples. He talked about social life in his legends. Thanks to him, all this can come down to our days. The dates of birth and death of the thinker are still unknown. Even the age in which he lived is also questioned. Some researchers believe that he was a contemporary of Azirat the prophet, and in support of this version, they cite excerpts from the legend. Other scholars say that Korkut Ata was a poet and storyteller of the Oghuz Turks, and as evidence, they cite the work of Korkut himself, consisting of 12 epic works.
Korkut атамыз ол күллі түрк әлеміне
Korkut Ata is a priest, teacher, and sage for all Turkic peoples. Books have been written about him. For example, the Book of Korkut Ata. This is a work dedicated to our ancestor. The book, or rather several copies of it, are kept in the city of Dresden. There are copies of it in Vatican and Istanbul.
тағы басқа жерлерде көшірмелер де бар.
The Book of Korkut Ata can be called a collection of legends that appeared in the 8th century and even earlier. It tells about the fate of the Oghuz tribes, which are directly related to the formation of the Kazakh ethnos. The book consists of several parts: the Song of Bukash, the son of Dersekan, the legend of the raid of enemies in the village of Kazanbek, the legend of Oghuz Kagan. In his work, Korkut Ata tells about the heroism of the Batars of the Oghuz tribe, who, not sparing their lives, defended their native land from enemies.
Ал енді бір
It is worth noting that every year a large music festival is held near the mausoleum of our ancestor in July. Guests come from different parts of the world to participate in it. This is a kind of gathering of representatives of the culture of the Turkic world. It features music and a range of other arts. Today, the Turkic community treats the spirit of the great ancestor with great respect and pays tribute to the memory by reading and dedicating prayers to Korkut Ata. The mausoleum was opened in his honor. The last time this building was overhauled in 1994.
әрине бізде де Korkut атамыздың жатқан жері бар деген сондай.
Of course, we also have a place in our country where, as they say, Korkut Ata rests. There was a mausoleum on the bank of the Sirdarya in the territory of the present Kizilorda region. Unfortunately, the water washed it away. That is, no one is to blame here. In addition, we know when this happened, the situation in the country was difficult. Economic crisis, revolution, famine. But later, of course, in tribute to the outstanding ancestor, a large complex was erected by the people. Now a large number of tourists come to this place every year.
үлкен комплекс салды. Оған қазір жыл сайын келетін туристер қаптап келіп жатыр.
The memorial complex Korkut Ata, built in the Karmashi district of the Kızılorda region, is certainly a holy place for everyone who has Turkic roots. This outstanding personality has become an example of imitation for many since ancient times. The steppe sage found eternal rest in his homeland on the banks of a mighty river. For the first time, the Korkut Ata mausoleum appeared here in the 9th, 10th centuries. The historical place, despite the centuries-old influence of the natural elements, wind, rain, and heat, still came down to descendants. If we talk about the burial place of Korkut Ata, then our brothers Turks also support the version that the great ancestor was buried right here on the banks of the Sirdarya. Already this fact of solidarity suggests that Korkut Ata is a common ancestor for all Turks. Every nation is trying to pull Korkut Ata towards them. There are places of his burial in Azerbaijan, Turkey, and among the Kazakhs, Uzbeks, and Turkmens. For some, Korkit Ata is a legendary Kobyz player, revered by many peoples, for others a noble representative of the Oghuz tribe. In any case, this is the great thinker, the famous Jirao storyteller, the creator of Kobyz, the composer, the patron of Baxi, healers, shamans. The wise ancestor left a significant mark not only in the history of the Kazakhs, but also of all the Turks.
Осыдан бір 5-6 жыл бұрын Парижде ЮНЕСКО-ның ұйымдастыруымен
Several years ago, in the capital of France, UNESCO organized a meeting of music experts from 5 countries, followed by a concert.
мамандары сол Париж қаласында үлкен кездесу болып, сонда концерт қойылды.
The concert was dedicated to the cultural heritage left to the descendants of the great Korkit Ata.
Түрк әлемінен 6-7
There were representatives of the Turkic world who arrived from 6-7 countries.
жүзге тарта.
Our country was represented by about 100 people. Mostly, they were musicians. Paris is the center of Europe, or rather its cultural center. So it is very important that this event devoted to Korkit Ata, creator of Kobyz, was held here. After all, this ancient instrument is the progenitor of the well-known violin in Europe. Representatives of the musical art demonstrated high skill. Listening to the works of Korkit, people plunged into deep thoughts. Korkit is a great value that unites all Turkic-speaking peoples and states. Everyone treats him with great respect in Kazakhstan, in Azerbaijan, in Turkmenistan, and in Uzbekistan. Korkit is revered throughout the Turkic world. Those who came to the concert were amazed by the sound of Kobyz. It has a truly magical effect on people. According to the audience, mysterious instrument evoked in them bewitching images of ancient times.
Біз айтамыз, қобыз. Бұл қобыздың атасы дейміз.
We say Kobyz. Korkit is its creator, ancestor. We know from history that this ancient instrument already existed in the 6th century. It was found during archaeological excavations in Kazakhstan, in the east, in the Altai Mountains. All fragments of a unique ancient artifact were collected. A copy was recreated from them.
Содан жасалған қазір бізде қобыздың көшірмелері бар.
Kobyz is a contemporary of the era of Korkit Ata, scientists say. On his famous camel, Jelmai, he traveled the world and with the help of Kobyz spoke about the problems that concerned society. The spirit of the outstanding ancestor who left a great legacy to the future generations seems to be hovering in the blue sky of Turkey even now.
Мен ойлаймын, мүмкін бұл кісі 7-8 ғасыр емес,
I think this person may have lived not in the 7th, 8th centuries, but in the 5th, 6th centuries. According to legend, he lived in the 7th, 8th centuries, but it is 200 years later. Therefore, if we say that he is the ancestor of Kobyz, then it is most likely that he lived in the 5th, 6th centuries. If we dwell on the monument that the Turks erected in honor of Korkit, he does not have a Kobyz, but an instrument, a saz. If so, then Korkit is the progenitor of saz, not Kobyz.
қобыздың атасы емес, саздың атасы болып шығады.
During research on Turkish land, the participants of the scientific expedition honored the memory of the great ancestor and read a prayer in his mausoleum. Visiting the sacred place, scientists got spiritual inspiration and a lot of positive impressions. They continue their journey through the amazing historical region.